Hello everyone, I'm Aditi Mama and welcome to another edition of Inside Scoop where we bring you prominent figures from here and India. These figures are South Asian voices that are really embarking on a true journey to represent our identity and so much more. On the show today, it's a privilege and honor to have amongst us an Indian politician, a former television journalist, and someone who really is passionate about true voices, true insights and identity. Someone who really represents the true Indian Muslim woman. On the show, let's welcome Shazia Ilmi. She has come here from India and joining us on ITV Gold.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for that kind introduction.
Oh, I think, I should have probably said more words to describe you. When somebody sort of researches you just a little bit, you all will find out that she has not only advocated for voices, but she has produced so many pathways for really and putting her visions out. So today, while I am discussing that with the audience and you, this passion you've had towards getting a true identity for Muslim women out, for yourself out, for having the right advocacy for Indians out in politics, be it through journalism or now through politics. Where is that passion derived from for you? And especially this year when you saw those elections, did you see a lot of the combination of the passion during elections really come out for you?
So it's been a long journey and a very interesting one. And I must tell you that I never thought politics was never really in picture. For me, it was a big deal just to think of having a high education, to have a career.
Right.
Because those were things we dreamed about, it wasn't possible. And I remember going to bed and actually praying and asking Allah that, change my circumstances or change my dreams.
Right.
Because what my dreams were, they were so different from what my immediate circumstances were in life. So, it's been it was a tough Muslim upbringing in a Sunni household. There were different rules for men and women, for girls and boys.
Yeah.
And where I derive my passion from essentially is a sense of injustice and anger that I feel, that what I have endured and I've seen others endure. And that instead of complaining about, I feel we can all channelize this anger, this angst, this anguish, and even the sense of helplessness that we've all felt at one point of time or the other in our lives. Any form of injustice, whether it's whether it's about being a girl and not being allowed the same as others, as guys are, to study, to go further, the discrimination between daughters and sons and that you felt, and also injustice in terms of the other realities of India. If you look at the class system and the caste system, and it's inter-religion and intra-religion, and all kinds of different conflicts that we endure, and the sense of injustice that you feel for yourself and others, I feel you can channelize it into a positive energy, into something big. And I always tell people to keep the anger alive. Don't say, oh, this is my lot. This is my fate. This was meant to be. Right. No, it might be, for some it might be just destiny, but it's in your hands to change destiny, to do something about it. If you couldn't help yourself when you were 15 years old or 16, you can help many others out there who are right now 15 and 16-year-olds. So you have to look after your own inner child that has suffered.
That is so
true. I said, I always think that, I was so helpless and I didn't know where to go and I didn't have a voice, and I just strained to have my voice be heard and to tell people that here I exist and don't ignore me. And I want to keep that sense of helplessness and pain alive so that I can speak for that Shazia who was lost and anguished and maybe traumatized, and speak for many other Shazias out there and many young girls who might want somebody to speak for them.
But using...
So I think it's important to keep it, and they say positive energy, that's very good, but it has to come from somewhere. And when you endure all those injustices and discrimination and unfairness, it should want to make you a better person, one, and to work on building a world that is a better place for others. That's what important. I believe in.
While you were speaking, my question there was, so having public big platforms such as using television
Yes.
and then getting into politics and becoming a spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party, which you are right now,
Yes.
these are very strong places for advocacy, for really bringing out that voice that we're
Yes.
talking about. How important was that for you personally to have that pathway? You know, when we are talking about those
Yes.
injustices and inequality, I can relate to you being
Yes.
born and raised in India that there were
Yes.
inequalities and there
Yes.
were injustices, and it's not that I came from
It's fairly blatant.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't come from a particularly crazily strict family, nothing, but
But even then,
of course, there were so many inequalities. So I can
Yeah.
totally relate to that. But how has that process been for you, having such a public platform and then having so many? You know, I was researching somewhere, and they called you the perfect, ideal, modern representation for an Indian Muslim woman. Now,
Yes.
so many women are looking up to you in that aspect. How has that experience been for you?
oh, it's absolutely humbling, and it's a huge reminder of my responsibilities and all the work that lies ahead of me. You see, I'm indefatigable. I need to work. I see myself as a warrior, so to speak, warrior activist.
Yeah.
So these are just different roles you play. And earlier it was all about you, whether I'll get to study more, whether I'll get to be married in a household, whether they'll allow me to work, whether I'll have a career. And now it's about that actualization, that can I work on an ecosystem to make things better for other girls who are struggling to have a foothold in that space,
Yeah.
where the power structures exist.
Right.
To create that and to work on those pathways, that's important. But it all starts with oneself. So it's a very intense journey, full of introspection and full of honesty too, because you can't take advantage of being a woman at the same time
That's true.
fight against injustices. So it's got to be a very honest fight. And I don't know, I just started my career as a journalist, and
Yeah.
like you, I was an anchor for several years. And much later, of course, then people recognize your work and worth, and you go places. And then at the height of that career, I decided to do something more. And there was this whole anti-corruption movement, which is
Yes.
just building up.
Yeah.
It was in its infancy. It was called the Anna Hazare movement
Yeah.
in 2011. And I was just thinking that, it's great to be a TV news anchor. It gives you that huge platform, first
Yeah.
as a reporter, producer, anchor. And then you're all set, you're well looked after, you have a very good bank balance and enough following, and you say, but I need to do more.
Yeah.
I need to go back there. What is the source of who I am, or what has created this in me? There has to be that X factor. You see, that's something that propels you in a direction. And then I just decided to give it all up and just put my TV career on hold and just jump into the Anna Hazare movement. So it was just like that, and the movement was really small at that point of time, and
Yeah.
then later on it became huge. And I thought I was leaving TV for good,
Right.
but then became the spokesperson for the movement,
Yeah.
and I created the whole media movement around the
Correct.
Anna Hazare Andolan.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then it became a party, and then I was a co-founder of the Aam Aadmi Party. And then Arvind Kejriwal and I fell out. We had huge differences. I was the first one to leave. And everybody told me, you should not do that. And I said, no, I will not stay in a place where I'm not respected. And nobody believed me, because Arvind had this holier than thou kind of a persona about himself. And then later on, people found out. And after me, everybody left.
Yeah.
So I think a bunch of people, very senior people, were either ousted from the party or thrown out ignominiously. So that happened. And then I waited a while, but there was a whole cooling off period for a whole year. And I wondered as to what I want to do. And then, I was anyway impressed with Prime Minister Modi, and he was sworn in. And then I saw these huge billboards of Swachh Bharat Andolan.
Yeah.
And I see this one Prime Minister talking about girls,
Yeah.
safety of girls. His exhorting men and women from
Right.
the ramparts of Red Fort, and say, see how we always ask about how girls should be. Do
Right.
you ever take a look at what your boys are doing? And I said, this is a man who's different.
And you are the brand ambassador.
of Swachh
Oh,
Bharat.
Swachh
as
Bharat
well. Yes,
Abhiyan.
and
Wow.
also it's been such a huge concern for me since I was a little girl.
of course.
And it's shocking as for you.
Yes.
You know that we have had open defecation.
Yes.
It's bad enough, but to have the indignity as a woman, to wait for it for the sun to go down to be able to use what people call restrooms and use it at all times. People in this part of the world take it for granted.
That's
but
so
it's
true.
something, you know what I mean? We never think
like
about
an
it.
earned privilege in India.
It's
to
an earned
have
privilege. Can you
normal
imagine? And this is
women health
these
rights.
our governments in the yesteryears could have done
Yes.
achieved many years earlier. But we only came around to doing about it just few years back, and look at our figures now.
Yeah.
India is getting open defecation free, and Prime Minister talked about dignity for women, our poor sisters, so that there have to be these toilets. And there's a huge big government scheme giving funds.
Yeah.
So it's a center state schemes for center and state, where both parties give certain amount of funds to build toilets.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge movement. So I always say that this Prime Minister gets votes. Yeah, well, a lot of politicians do, but I think he gets a lot of blessings.
And is that why you chose at that point to, you know, and you
I
also
saw the
publicly spoken
Gandhiji's,
about
Mahatma
it.
Gandhiji's
Yeah.
spectacles in the Swachh Bharat.
Right.
And I said, you know, he's from the BJP and all of that, and he's using Mahatma Gandhi's spectacles as a symbol, so to speak, for Swachh Bharat. Something different is happening here. He's a different kind of a person. He's not your typical run-of-the-mill Indian politician, no. He's a sannyasi man. He's a man who's ready to give up a lot in life. He does not have a personal agenda. He cares for the country.
Right.
And there I was, bought in totally. And because that's the kind of person I was. And the Hazare movement, it was a small movement, but I said we have to fight corruption.
Exactly.
And that was against UPA too. So, I mean, I'm a politician, you're not, but I must tell you that India was known for all the scams and all the corruption, and our newspapers were replete with more and more stories. I mean, your Inside Scoop program at that point of time would have been about this scam or the other.
Yeah.
So and you just see Prime Minister Modi's 5-year tenure, not one scam, not one corruption scam touching or tainting even one minister from his cabinet.
He's actually known to clear out a lot too.
Yes.
That's been the reputation, that he came and cleaned out a lot, and you have to give him
I'm
that.
also a huge fan, and I believe this, and what I like about him, and it's not political at all, is that he's deep down, he seeks transformation, not just politically, but social transformation.
Yeah, that's important.
When he talks about respect for women, when he talks about allowing the poor, not just allowing them, but giving them the dignity to have Jan Dhan cards, you know, which is the bank cards. And because a huge percentage of Indians do not have access to the banking system. And so he's breaking down those barriers, caste, class, religion. And that for me is phenomenal.
And you know, I have
This
to say,
is the new India.
Yeah, exactly.
We dream about, you and I.
So true, so true. And you know, I was just about to get there. You are an Indian politician and also a public figure that represents that growing India, also that young India that is just looking for a political party or an entity to serve the nation, no matter who they are, and doesn't have to be whatever the historic alliances, right?
You are so right. Because tell me, people got into politics for what? To make money?
Right.
Or because they came from families that were political?
Exactly.
How many people became politicians because they wanted to working on the nation?
Right.
On nation building, on transformation.
So true.
Public policy.
Yeah.
Gender rights. Because, politics, it was meant for others. No, there is incentive for people like me, a boost for people like me to enter politics, to work on all the things that we've dreamed about working all these years, cleaning up the system, having good laws. You know, triple talaq bill. Since I've been a little girl, I've been seeing my cousins and so many people coming from Kanpur, which I do, where I hail from, suffering. You know, this is called triple talaq, which is talaq-e-biddat.
Exactly.
And men just abandoning them by the mere utterance of, I divorce thee thrice, and that being the end of the story. And these women literally have to beg for alms. They go from place to place with the children. The man remarries, and there is no provision for these women. And this law has been banned in so many Islamic countries.
Right.
So you wonder that when Pakistan does not have it, when Bangladesh does not have it, Malaysia and Indonesia and Tunisia do not have it, Egypt do not have it, why should we suffer it in India? Why should my Indian Muslim sisters suffer this?
How massively is it impacting the women there, according to you?
Well, it's such a psychological fear that a woman lives with, because she'll get married, but she can be thrown out any minute. So it's not just about numbers and statistics, because it's difficult to get those. Very few marriages are registered, let alone the divorces. You see, so you can't get those numbers. But the fact is that it happens all the time. And there are women who actually went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court came out with this historic judgment that this is invalid, this is unconstitutional, it is illegal, it is also un-Quranic, because this is not part of the Quran. Strangely.
Oh, the triple talaq is not a part.
It's not part of the Quran.
Oh, wow. So it was just culturally
the
added?
methods. Yeah.
Culturally added.
So it's a talaq-e hasan and talaq-e ehsan are the prescribed forms of talaq in the Quran Sharif. And talaq-e biddat came many years after the demise of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in Hazrat Umar's time. So it was not part of that era or part of the Quran at all. So it was just a myth that was being propagated.
Wow.
So it's so easy to do without, but people held on to it. And I'm ashamed to say that at the Rajya Sabha, it was objected to by the Congress party, by Owaisi's party, Muslim League and many other
On what
parties.
basis?
They felt it would be interfering with the rights of, in the personal rights of Muslims, personal practices of Muslims, and there needed to be reform there. So I think, yeah, it's been huge. So and I just found my place. You see, God sends you in the right direction,
Right.
and that's what happened with me.
I have to ask you, when you are representing yourself as a spokesperson for a right-winged Bharatiya Janata Party with the the ideals of Hindutva, really, it's something been like a global voice that we've heard everywhere. But,
yes, absolutely.
But you've been a part and a spokesperson now of the Bharatiya Janata Party, being a very supporting Muslim woman who wants to also be able to support people from her faith and also bring them in here as well. Your take on Muslims in India being represented by Bharatiya Janata Party. I would love for you to give a comment on it, because very rarely do we get, women, Indian Muslim politicians to sit with us representing Bharatiya Janata Party. Everyone,
I think I defy many stereotypes,
which is amazing.
So yes, so it is considered, so BJP is considered an anti-Muslim party, and this is a narrative that has been bandied around by the left liberals, and I don't even call them liberals. I don't know whether they're leftist or which side of the center they are.
The right and left is very different there.
Yeah, it's it's the way it is. But if you read the last issue of The Economist or the Time magazine talking about Modi as a divider in chief, which I thought was so unfair, because he actually is a huge disruptor and a unifier, because he's unified the poor, the classes together, and even he's cut across the caste barriers to create this pan-India, proud to be Indian moment for all of us.
Right.
So I think that, yes, it's a very unfair charge, and it's a very selective way of reporting news and looking at it. And this seems to be the only agenda of the Congress party and other so-called secular parties to call BJP anti-Muslim. BJP does not believe in appeasement. BJP believes in commonality. BJP believes in equal rights for all, which is why it is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and now Sabka Vishwas.
Right.
Because Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas was there. There has been not a single case in India where there has been any discrimination in terms of any of the policies, whether it's a Jan Dhan Yojana or the toilet scheme that I talked about, the Swachh Bharat, or the Ujjwala Yojana, where women are offered gas cylinders so that they can do away with the cooking chulhas and the old stoves that they had. for the first time, these policies are there, and there is no discrimination on the basis of religion. So the government's policies and its implementation is totally discrimination free. So on what basis would they attribute the so-called new erupting hatred in India to Modi? We've had a communally charged politics for years, I mean, since partition and even before. It has been the whole thing of divide and rule as we know it, since the time of the Britishers. So it's a very unfair thing, and this is the only thing they can bash BJP with. But we're coming back with figures and we're saying, no, this is not true. And we are decoding all these and demystifying all the myths that are thrown at us. And there are Muslims out there who refuse to be seen only as members of a minority. The Constitution of India gives me the right to be an absolute equal. And I tell these parties, and I challenge parties like Congress and Mulayam Singh's party, which is Samajwadi, and Mayawati's party, which is the BSP, that why do you treat Muslims as the other, just for their votes? Why don't you treat them as equals, equal stakeholders in the country's progress? So I'm not a member of any minority, I'm an Indian. Why would I, this is I'm part of that, and I don't want to diminish my power accorded to me by my constitution by becoming a helpless, hapless member of the minority. I mean, it's such a disempowering narrative. And all the journalists, civil society groups, and some people who call themselves intellectuals, and of course the opposition in India now, must know that by always talking about a separate identity for Muslims, they are doing the biggest disservice to Muslims, because they are completely disempowering them and taking them away from the mainstream, and making them fearful of a situation, and attributing conspiracy theories where there are none.
You know, I have to say, when you saw the victory, the massive, you know, landslide victory, amazing. The victory that you saw with the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the fact that at that point, when we even covered the elections, the topics of discussions were gender equity, they were employment, they were economy, that was national security, big topics. Do you think now this win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the kind of members that are the political entities of this big party, such as yourself, do you think this is really representative of the fact that India now is working on real issues, and we are getting people to support those real issues? Would you agree with that?
I think so. And I think for the first time, Indians who are marginalized actually saw something for themselves, whether it's from the health care benefits, Ayushman Bharat, or through an LPG cylinder. Now, to you and me, it sounds like a very basic thing, but to scores of Indian women who use the earthen urns, you know, the chulhas.
The chulhas still in the rural parts,
and to cook. And use firewood and have such issues with the health, you know, for them it's a big relief, you know. So whether it's that or so these small schemes which seem small to us but are part of the basic infrastructure, basic amenities that every citizen should have. For the first time, there is a national grid. For the first time, there are direct cash transfers happening. Or the middlemen getting out of the system, a better public distribution system, a prevention of leakages in the public distribution services, the way the health services, social services were rendered. So that is creating a very positive atmosphere, and people are responding to it. And they're sick and tired of this dynastic caste politics. You know, my caste, your caste. No. It doesn't matter what your caste or my caste is. What am I getting? From Modi ji, they get a corruption-free government that cares, that delivers, that doesn't just promise but also is high on delivery, and perhaps the only government that is high on delivery. You just see the roadways, you see the infrastructure, you see the way the cabinet works. So just 2 days back, I was talking to a very senior minister. His name is Gajendra Shekhawat, and he's part of the drinking water, Jal Shakti. And you know, he finished working till the night before at 2 in the morning. Piyush Goyal ji, everybody knows, till 5 in the morning he was working on something. This is how ministers work, and it's regular for them because they have goals given to them. Bureaucrats are being made to work, and of course some of the bright ones are giving, and not just made to work, but they've been, the whole system has been overhauled for better efficiency. So we needed that many years earlier. Finally, it's happening.
What's your comment as well as message on Young India? That was a huge part of this whole movement we saw about elections this year, a huge part of what both the parties had focused on at that point. A huge part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's everyday dialogue is to empower Young India and to involve them in on grassroots levels. Your comments on that?
You know, Prime Minister and his Mann Ki Baat is a discussion he does, is this conversation he has with people on radio.
Okay.
And he always talks about the youngsters. And in fact, he's addressed issues that no Prime Minister would have thought of addressing, like stress before exams. And how not to be bogged down by anxiety. So things that really connects him to the youngsters. And for the first time, the thrust is away from job. Like everybody wanted a sarkari job, a government job. But he's talking about enterprise. He's talking about Startup India. He's saying you don't think of just being an employee, you become an employer. So he's looking at the whole model is changing and is giving a lot of confidence to youngsters, and also a sense of pride in who you are. You see, a lot of these things, a lot of nation building happens in an invisible way. So it's invisible, but it's tangible. The pride, the confidence that I can do it. And that was needed to be done, because we were living in a very cynical world where we felt, oh, we are nobodies. The politicians have it all. And there was such huge apathy at that point of time. So I think Modi ji has brought back hope, belief. There's a resurgence of confidence. And we're all set. We believe that India is going to be and will be a $5 trillion economy.
Definitely.
So we're going in that direction. So it's huge, and we feel देश बदल रहा है.
Definitely.
आगे बढ़ रहा है.
This whole concept of New India that we are talking about, this new whole 5 years term, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that's already been done. When you're looking at your own particular rules and your own, pathway in this entire process, where do you see yourself head in those directions? And also, are there any things particular in agenda for this year and perhaps 2020 that you really are passionate about?
Yes, I'm extremely passionate about not just gender rights, but overall equality and the message we bring. And with all the hate that is happening, I feel a very clear role for myself to play a part as not just as a goodwill ambassador, but as a activist working on ground, to tell people to get over the differences and be a part of this new India. And we have to shed this identity politics. I want to go out there, whether it's of course a triple talaq bill, I'm very happy is back in the parliament, has been reintroduced and soon will be a law.
And you're closely working with it.
Yes, very closely. But there is so much to be done. There is so much to be done, and I want to reach out to all. I mean, just because I'm a Muslim doesn't mean I should work only with the Muslims. But yes, because there is a sense of relatability, I want to go out and tell them to embrace this new the new beginnings that are happening in something, be a part of something positive and stop this hate. We have to stop this labeling, stop the otherness, that we have to assimilate, be together and be integrated as a unified whole, which is India. And this is the idea of India.
As a woman, I would love for you to give a message out to all South Asian women in terms of gender right and how you think they should advocate for their voice.
This is so important that you asked me, Aditi, and it's something very close to my heart. I'm very emotional about it. I think, first of all, we must accept that things are tough. There is a lot of pain in each one of us, of a different kind and of different magnitude, I'm sure. But I think it's very important for us to have a little conversation. And this conversation is not to people in a house, people in an office, men out there or other women out there, but this conversation that you need to have with yourself, I need to have with myself, and every woman needs to have with herself. How does she see herself in her own life? does she want to play a role that has already been defined for her? Or will she explore that dimension of who she actually is, of which she knows nothing about? She's just been told that she's a daughter, she's a wife, she's a mother, this is a job. But where is a voice within her? What does it tell her? Does the voice within her tell her that yes, she can be a huge, big banker? Does it tell her that she can really run a big business?
Right.
Does something tell her that she must say no to injustice? Does the voice inside her tell her that next time she's expects her daughter to cook and not the son, maybe she should rethink that? Yeah. So these are voices within you. So go out there. Before anything else can change, there is a spark in each one of us. And if you don't speak for yourself, no one else will. So speak for yourself and speak for others.
I know we're running very short on time, but there is a lot of work that you've been doing with the United Nations.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
With a lot of love, and it's with a lot of humanitarian causes attached to it.
Yes.
And of course, the government of India very closely works
Yes.
with the United Nations as well,
Yes.
since we're one of those
and
countries.
our UN mission has been absolutely,
Yes.
has been brilliant, has been so successful, as you all know. And we are so proud of Syed Akbaruddin, who's done a great job. So I work as an advisor to Dr. BK Modi, Dr. M,
Yes.
and who's the Wafuna president.
Yeah.
And Wafuna actually is affiliated to the UN, and there are 100 UNOAs, United Nations Associations, 100 countries.
Wow.
And it works on education programs all over. And so it's amazing to be part of this group, and working with Dr. M as the president of Wafuna. And Eleanor Roosevelt has played a role there.
Wow.
And Nelson Mandela used to be the Wafuna president as well.
Who are the targeted, individuals for this charity? Where is this education empowerment happening?
So these are UN programs and UN syllabuses, and they're running all over the world.
Wow.
So they're mock parliament sessions, and they
Wow.
aim at, so there's some fantastic things happening there. And it's really an honor to play this role as well, because I don't want to just play a political role,
Right.
but my role in society and as a global citizen, and somebody who believes in the idea of Advait, there is no other, no duality, to go out and spread this message. And as Wafuna president, Dr. M is doing a great job by really encouraging and making the world a smaller place, like a global village, so to speak.
Wow.
So that is the idea.
We have United Nations here just at home in New York.
Right.
There's so many organizations that are working, so closely with a group of really passionate NRI individuals, or even Indians that are living here. With Indians having such a huge global impact, what, according to you, is their role? If we were to also, contribute back to India, to causes, where do you think we should sort of, shed some light on? Your personal opinion.
So, as you know, we can't live in our silos. The world is interconnected.
That's so true.
And you see movements that are happening all over. So if you see Facebook, there is, if you see all, the big four, the big five, the national boundaries do not matter. People connect in different levels, if you see. So UN's role is huge, really. But there are a lot of answers that we are still looking for. So I think as empowered citizens, responsible citizens, we must look at that global identity and work on positive measures. Dr. BK Modi, Dr. M is doing exactly that. And I think we'll be setting up some awards now, UN awards.
Oh, wow.
Which will be like global citizen awards, global citizenship. Because we are always like the identity of my religion and your
Yes.
religion, and my caste and your caste, and my class and your class, and
Yeah.
my nation and your nation.
Yeah.
So, it must stop after a while.
Yeah.
And we must see people as, minus the prism of all the various identities and the artificial barriers that come in the way, and see people for who they are, connect at a real level. So, Wafuna, under Dr. BK Modi's presidentship would do that. And look at, set up a new set of awards, to classify people as global citizens, and recognize those who are doing good work internationally.
I know a lot of the work that you're doing now is political, it's about public advocacy, it's about
Yes.
really getting your voices out, gender right, women right, but having such a close experience to the world of television and media, especially
Yes.
in the news
Yes.
medium.
Tell me about it.
What is your take on, the Indian media, and as well as now that we have another 5 years, how do you think the media should, create content in order to truly reflect upon what India needs and to educate the community on how they can perhaps help? What's your comment on that?
So, I've been a news anchor primarily.
exactly.
That was my only
Like,
working
this
job
was
that I
your,
know. Exactly.
home.
That was my
Yeah.
world, my entire universe. So, but I would be critical, and I think it's important for everybody in media also to be critical of themselves, because that's the only way to get better. I think there is such a lot of importance being given to the binary politics, this point of view or that point of view. In India also it is pro-Modi and anti-Modi. So I think people have to look at real issues. People have to get their objectivity back. Journalists must learn some lessons of neutrality. The entire agenda, the entire day long, or the entire tenure long cannot be finding faults with one individual, with one party. I think objectivity leads to credibility, and credibility is the cornerstone of news. So without that, nothing works. So I'm not saying don't be critical of the government. You must be, but not with some visceral hatred, but with a certain sense of impartiality, neutrality, and you must have the gumption also to see your own biases, and also the honesty to see the good work and point it out, even if it's being carried out by a government that you seem to dislike.
Wow. It's quite asking for a balance here in media.
Much needed.
I have one last question for you. For someone who has experienced so much in her life, and also as a spokesperson.
I led many lives in my life,
Exactly. And
action-packed life.
And you continue to empower so many more people.
Yes.
You've embarked on such a remarkable journey, and right now you're working in one of the strongest political parties in the world, actually, because we are the second largest, population and the largest democracy.
Do you know Bharatiya Janata Party is the largest party not just in India but in the entire world?
Oh wow!
With the membership drive that we have, just the sheer numbers, so we are the biggest party. Yes.
Wow. So my question to you would be, how do you, at this point, define success, and what motivates you now?
Nothing much has changed in me, since I just think you play different roles. So, but the substance of who you are remains the same. And I remain deep down a person, that helpless girl, fighting injustice at some level or the other, being a part of a world which is dedicated and committed to reducing biases, making it easier and better for those who have to break the shackles, so to speak. So I remain that. I don't think that part of me has changed. Yes, I play different roles. I might be more effective now. I might be more watched or followed now. But that essentially remains the core of who I am. To be the voice for the voiceless, so to speak. And all of us have to play our part, including you and many others. And yes, and I think as far as women are concerned, you see there is a huge potential which can be unleashed, which can be huge, which must be used to contribute to so many things. And I feel that is happening now. Women are realizing their power. And it doesn't have to be that aggressive sense of power, but this gentle power, effective power, the power to just make your own decisions, the power, the ability to be able to pursue higher education, to choose your partner, and to say no to cruelty, to domestic violence. That power, instead of just being prisoners of their own minds and their own conditioning. So breaking conditioning, social conditioning, is very important. Key to progress.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure having you. I would love for you to give one last message to our audience here, to the entire South Asian diaspora in the US. We're so great.
Well, all I'd like to say to all of you is that there are a lot of things that bother us. We are far away from our countries. Many of you are far away from your countries of origin. So instead of being enraged and angry, get engaged. Do something positive. Complaining doesn't help. So you have to go out there and make a difference. And like Mahatma Gandhi said, you know, be the change that you want to see. And your life is your message. The way you conduct your own life says a lot about how you want other lives to be and to be led. Thank you.
Well,
Jai Hind.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Such a pleasure, Aditi. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. Thank you. And this was none other than Shazia Ilmi. She's the spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party. Truly a joy for all of us to have such a passionate advocate for women's rights, gender equality, and just such a sheer joy to see the Indian government really bring forth true voices and true advocates for all. Join us on the next episode of Inside Scoop. I'm Aditi Lamba signing off.